Welcome back to car-pinionated, our weekly and slightly irreverent talk about cars, the car industry, and driving in general. I'm Doug Stewart, Senior Digital Content Producer for Fox 61 in Hartford. Joining me is Jeff Buckles, writer and editor at WBBM Chicago. And from beautiful Fairfield County, Connecticut, Glenn Packman, improv comedy stylist and fellow car enthusiast. So, gentlemen, let's go in the Wayback Machine to model year 2016. Right?
Yeah.
The time unlike any other.
Toyota came out with a new Tacoma. A lovely vehicle, sold a lot of them, very popular, very, everyone, a lot of people really love the Tacoma. They're introducing a new one. Going to have a new one on sale for the 2024 model year. Should be trickling into dealers now. We'll leave the question of whether the dealers will be marking it up exorbitantly to another time. But so what are you thinking about the new Tacoma, Glenn?
I like it. I think it's way overdue. I kind of want to just powwow with people at Toyota and find out why it took them so long. I can just, I'm assuming their number one competition is Honda. It just Toyota and Honda always seem to be just going at each other. And Honda updates everything every 3 to 4 years the most. So this is a long time for an update. So that's my big question: is what took you so long? But it looks, I like the look of it. It looks like there's 2 different front ends you can order on this car. One of which I'm not so enamored with because it looks like a kid with his retainer in, which has got this sort of. But the other one I like better. Nothing against kids with retainers. Use your retainer. It's good for your TMJ or. Okay, I guess my real question is, has the audience for this truck changed in the United States? There's people who are, they're very hard sell on buying American. And I know that line is completely blurred, and they may be making this truck in the States and it'll have more American parts than a Ford or a Chevy, but they'll buy a Ford or a Chevy anyways, because that's an American make, So I'm just wondering if the sales will be good. Toyota has the reputation of putting together a car that just lasts and lasts and lasts, and I'm sure that's not going to change. So to that end, good for Toyota. I like the truck. I would drive this in a minute. So.
Jeff?
They spent a lot of time and a lot of money engineering a couple of different versions of this truck. I think one has I think they designed 2 different rear suspension designs depending on whether it's a 4-wheel drive truck or a rear-wheel drive truck. They've put, as you point out, a couple of different front ends on offer. There's 3 or 4 different interior options. There are seats with shock absorbers on them. The innovations here are kind of insane, actually.
Yeah.
And they still offer one with a manual transmission, which I think is notable. The Toyota had to come into this with a class-leading truck. They still sold a bunch of them. I think, in fact, sales went up this year. I suspect because people knew it was the last of the run, and my guess is Toyota was probably making deals on the remaining 23s to get them off lots. But it's the Tacoma and kind of everybody else, and it's not really all that close. I think. I can't even remember now what the numbers I saw, the most recent numbers I saw were, but the Tacoma is way out in front. I think the Colorado and Canyon twins from General Motors are second. I think the Nissan Frontier, which is a perfectly fine truck, even though its bones date back to the second George W. Bush administration, is after that. And then you've got the Jeep Gladiator, the Honda Ridgeline, and the Ford Ranger. And the Ranger used to do really well, but I think the Maverick has really stripped a lot of sales away from the Ranger. But
Right.
Ford keeps the Ranger in production because the Ranger is the underpinning of the Bronco, which they can't keep on lots at all.
Right.
So they really, because it had been so long since we'd seen a new Tacoma, and the competition, in particular the new Colorado and Canyon, which are really impressive, had really moved on and had really moved up. They clearly had to show that they're still the king of the hill, and it seems as though they've done that. And it costs a lot of money to engineer a truck to a price. They knew they couldn't price the thing completely out of the market. And to the Buy American argument, and I do think these trucks are built in Texas. I don't remember exactly. They might be built in Indiana too. I think Toyota pickup truck sort of transcends all of that, certainly at this point. They don't sell a lot of Tundras. It's pretty much there to be there. But they sell a ton of Tacomas, and it is the default compact truck in this country. And the strangely unrelated Hilux is the default pickup truck in most of the rest of the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They've done a really good job, I think, of trying to appeal to as broad a spectrum of potential buyers as they can. Everything from the rubber floor mat steely version all the way up to whatever they're calling the top of the line thing now, some kind of TRD probe, something or other. I think it's great. I agree with you. It's long overdue. The reading that I've done on the amount of engineering that went into this truck is kind of insane.
Okay.
It looks like it's built in San Antonio.
Okay, yeah. And that was the facility that they built for the Tundra initially. I know they made a big deal out of building a truck plant in Texas.
Yeah. Go ahead, Glenn.
A question that I have. I'm looking at this thing, and I don't know if it qualifies in that smaller class of truck anymore. It looks like it's expanded in size. I look at this thing and it doesn't say Ranger to me at all. And I honestly don't know how big the current Ranger is either, but it just seems like the size has expanded. I'm assuming that's a good thing because it's got 4 doors and a back seat you can use. So are they aiming for the Maverick? It seems bigger than that.
Yeah, I don't think the Maverick's in its sights at all. I think it's the Ranger and the Colorado. And I would argue that the Ridgeline goes to an entirely different audience.
From a size, I agree with you. From a size standpoint, I think it's the closest competition from Honda. And I do suspect that some of the softer Tacoma trims get cross-shopped with the Ridgeline a bit. And Toyota is probably also looking at lower trim F-150s.
Yeah.
It's 80% of the truck for 80% of the money.
Right, exactly. It's compelling. It's a compelling vehicle. I'm dying to see one up close so I can take an honest look at it. But
it seems as though the thing that the biggest gripe, and I haven't been in a Tacoma in a long time, but the biggest gripe I had was that the floor seemed very high relative to kind of the H point, like where you end up sitting in the seat, like your legs are sort of way out in front of you. And it seems as though the big change for this one is they've made the cabin itself taller.
Yeah.
So the seat height and the floor is more comfortable and not so trucky, while still having it look like a truck.
I had our friend of the show, Bob Palumbo, has had a Tacoma for a long time, and I would drive it when I went to Florida, and it was not to be confused with anything but a truck. It was not it rode like a truck, it handled like a truck, it was a truck.
Right.
Not to say that's bad, but it was, you had to, it wasn't like driving, their Santa Fe, or and and it just like that was kind of the thing that came back to me a lot, because then he replaced it with a Ranger, and he will tell you that he'd buy another Ranger if it had a sunroof, but it doesn't have a sunroof. And he's looking at the Tacoma. I think, and I think to why they left it around, because the thing was minted money for them.
Yeah.
You
It
know,
wasn't
they were,
broken, so why fix it, right?
yeah,
all the tooling's paid for. People were still buying them.
Yeah.
They were fixing other parts of the operation, frankly. They had other
Yeah.
stuff to bring out, other stuff to refine, and they finally got around to the Tacoma.
Right.
yeah, yeah.
I guess
And
another big question I have is just is it any fun to drive? Because I've owned two Toyotas in the past. We had a 2002. Actually, I think they were both 2002s, so it's going back a few years. But we had a Celica and we had the RAV4. The Celica was, for it wasn't really a sports car. It was really just essentially it was just it was a two-seater with a padded shelf in the back, with an everyday kind of engine, but it handled nicely. It looked sharp. The Rav was a terrific little car.
it's a great
But
car.
neither of them were exceptionally compelling to drive. They were put together well. We never had a stitch of problems with either, with the exception of the dreaded windshield squeak, which deserves an entire episode of this show, if you ask me. But but anyways, yeah, that was on the Rav. But they were exceptional cars, but they didn't have. We've mentioned this about Nissan. They didn't evoke a lot. You know what I mean? So I'm just wondering if there's any sort of fun in driving this vehicle.
I mean, that's never really been Toyota's USP at
Right.
all.
Right. Yeah.
It's always been precision crafted, well-built cars that are reasonably efficient, but
Right.
they've never been particularly involving from a driver's standpoint. I mean, given the
That's very
choice
true.
between a Camry or an Accord, I'd pick the Honda every day, because the Honda is really entertaining. Pretty much any Honda, anytime, is really entertaining to drive. And also, they've never been particularly value leaders in their segment, especially not now.
Right.
So you are buying the reputation of reliability
Right.
and
Couldn't agree
quality.
more. Yeah.
Yeah. And they have honed quality reputation. Cars don't die to to a fine point, and good for them,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's also to be said that this new Tacoma is based on the TNGA GAF platform, which underpins the Land Cruiser and the Sequoia and the Tundra and probably the new Forerunner, which is another question. What happens to the Forerunner now that the Land Cruiser is going to be there at kind of that high end of the Land Cruiser price point? That's a question.
Yeah, the Forerunner is another one of these vehicles that has just sort of been the same for years, right? And even as its competition has grown, has become more refined, has become, have gone from being like body on frame to unibody, and back again in a lot of cases. There's the Forerunner still soldiering on, even when there are other vehicles that are doing the same job that a Forerunner can do, and doing it with more comfort. The Highlander, the Grand Highlander, the RAV4 is now kind of a biggish SUV that probably takes up probably gets a number of people who would ordinarily have bought a Forerunner. But now with a new Land Cruiser coming in at 50-ish
Yeah,
is the price
55,
point.
55.
Like that's kind of kind of loaded Forerunner money.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. Yeah.
You start to wonder, yeah, where does the Forerunner fit? And is the Forerunner due for a sort of FJ Cruiser-esque kind of stripping down and refocusing, which frankly would be kind of fun. I'm sort of sad that the FJ Cruiser only lasted one generation, because it was it was really an interesting car. It was an interesting way to rearrange the ingredients. In that way, the Taco Bell takes the same 6 ingredients and makes a whole menu board full of stuff that looks different.
Though the prices on those cars, I haven't looked at them recently, but like they hold those FJ Cruisers held their value for a long time.
Yeah, it's hard to find them now, actually.
Yeah. The current Forerunner came out in 2010 model year.
Wow.
Going on 15 years.
Yeah.
Which is a long
It's the
time.
Chrysler 300 of Toyotas.
Yeah. There's a Forerunner in a used car lot down the street that keeps calling my name, and I'm like, no, I can't do that.
Oh boy. No.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. I think Toyota's going to sell every Tacoma that they get on a lot. Not a question. I think people will be pleased, and I think that it's another notch in their belt of successful vehicles, and that's good. Good for them. Good that this one has a set of hybrid engines that are in there. They're dropping the V6, right? Am I right on that?
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be, good on them. I'm pretty sure that our friend Bob will be buying one. So maybe we'll get Bob to report on the new Tacoma.
There you go. I'm here for all Gator Bob content.
I'll second that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does the Forerunner at the lot down the street, does it already have a Ron John Surf Shop sticker in the back window, or do you have to buy that separate?
I think there was one there, but
they razor bladed it off.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, it's a 2015, and part of one of the many things that kind of dissuade me from it is like it's got what essentially might as well be a tube radio in it.
Oh gosh.
I mean, it's just technology has evolved and changed, and radios, Bluetooth and whatever, and this thing looks like it's built into it.
Like you gotta wait for the tubes to warm up for it to pick up Fibber McGee and Molly or whatever.
It's the Jack Benny Show.
That's right.
H.G. Wells, War of the Worlds. Well, gentlemen, it has been another week of Car-Pinionated. I appreciate you coming along for the ride. It's been a lot of fun. This is always great fun for me. So thanks everyone for joining us. If you have comments, please email me at dstewart@fox61.com. If you enjoyed this, you can watch previous episodes on our YouTube channel. And remember to like and subscribe. And with that, we will see you next time.